Good evening, good morning, YouTube. So I thought I'd do a bit of a book haul. I stopped by Half Price Books the other day, well, yesterday, and I picked a few things up. But I also went to my grandma's recently and picked up some old books there, some of which were mine and some were, I've just been there for a long time. Actually, most of the ones I got here were all mine, but there's a bunch of books at my grandma's. So, and some of them belong to my dad's and my uncles and stuff. My dad and my uncles. So I figured I'd talk about them a bit, little bit of history with them and stuff. So it might be interesting. I'll start with the stuff I got at Half Price Books, and then one of these I got at Walmart. So this is one right here. This is True Grit. I've actually read this before. But I might read it again sometime. This is a really great book, so it's been several years since I read it. I don't know how soon I'll get to it, but I will read it sometime. But yeah, if you've never read True Grit, definitely check this out. This is probably one of the best westerns ever. I really like the Coen Brothers movie too, and I don't think I've read this since I've seen that movie, so it'd be interesting to see some of the differences and stuff too. So that'd be a pretty interesting read, I think, when I get back to it. This I got at Walmart. This is To Kill a Mockingbird. To Kill a Mockingbird is a fantastic book. I saw this there. I was really surprised to see. Every once in a while, you'll see some like classic books get reprints or whatever, new editions. I think it's like an anniversary edition, and that's why they got them at Walmart right now. They had this and like Fahrenheit 451, which I've read both of those. But To Kill a Mockingbird is great. So this is just a good excuse to read it again. I didn't think I had pretty certain I don't have a copy of it here, so I went ahead and grabbed it. It wasn't terribly expensive, maybe like $13 or something. It says 17 on the back, but I don't think it was that much. I think I only paid 15 for it. Maybe it was $13 or $15, but anyway, I thought that was really worth it, so I went ahead and picked it up. I saw a hardcover of it at Meijer the other day too, so I don't know if you guys have Meijer where you're at, but anyway, so now these are all the ones I got from Half Price Books coming up. Besides that, True Grit. This is North and South by John Jakes. I know who this author is. They had another John Jakes books there for like $1 or $2. I should have grabbed it. So Half Price Books is about 20 minutes from my house. There's another used bookstore that's more like a family-owned place that I like a lot. I'm going to make a trip to soon called anyone from my area might recognize it, but it's Bookery Fantasy. It's kind of well known. Bookery Fantasy is a great store, so that's also about 20 minutes from my house. It's kind of close, sort of close to Half Price Books, but Bookery Fantasy sells not only used books, but they sell comic books and used comic books. The comic books, it's like 4 different stores all right next to each other in a downtown area, and they sell a lot of comic books and collectible comic books. You know, the comic book section is much smaller than it used to be. They've like reduced it so much. Last time I was there, they had all the long boxes in the basement area. So they have like, on top of having, it's 2 or 3 storefronts, they also have a basement area, 2 of them. One is all used books, and the other one is used like a long box, cheaper comic books. So next time I go there, I might do a little bit of filming in there. They're pretty nice there, and I always find good books there. I don't buy and read as many comic books, and certainly not single issues, but maybe I could go and look through some of that stuff too. But anyway, so this is North and South by John Jakes. This is a pretty well-known book. I've never read it, but I know who John Jakes is. I've heard of him. I want to say I've read some of his stuff, but this is just a good excuse to check it out. It's a mass market paperback of an 800-page book, so I assume it'll make it through one more read if I read it, but anyway, so I tend to not read a ton of hard copy books. I typically read most of my stuff on Kindle, but I'll go ahead and give this a try. I'll keep it by the bed. Then I picked these up. This is an author I really love, and it's been a long time since I've read this series. This is Patrick O'Brian. This is Volume 1 and Volume 3. They didn't have Volume 2, but of the Aubrey Matan. I'm sorry, yeah. I'm not even sure how you say that. It's the Aubrey Adventures, Aubrey Maturin Adventures. So I read these like had to be 6-7 years ago, but I'm going to read it again because I really like these a lot when I read them. And of course, the first one's this is Master and Commander, which is probably the most well known. Obviously, the movie that was made with Russell Crowe is pretty well known. But I would put Patrick O'Brien's one of my top 5 favorite authors. And an author, I think, he had a really interesting career. He didn't really get known until really late in his career. He had already written a bunch of these in this series by the time, they made it to the United States, and he got, he started to blow up then. So I'm going to read it again. I'm going to read this again very soon. I pretty much got a lot of my reading planned out for a long time, because I want to read this whole series again, and I'm going to read a bunch of the Sharpe novels again, if not the whole series by Bernard Cornwell. And then I already started rereading the Last Kingdom series. I'm like 5 books in on it, and I stopped a few months ago, but I'll probably just pick it back up right where I was. But that's why I can do features on Bernard Cornwell, Wilbur Smith, which I'm going to read Cry Wolf soon and talk about it on the channel. But anyway, Patrick O'Brian, those are the 3 authors I plan to feature the most on the channel, or Patrick O'Brian, Wilbur Smith, and Bernard Cornwell. Bernard Cornwell is my favorite author, and Wilbur Smith is my second favorite author, and it's not even close. So those 2 will always be my favorite authors, and I will read them and reread them for the rest of my life. So I don't foresee that ever changing. And then Patrick O'Brian, I would definitely put in my top 5, if not number 3 for me. But I will say I've been reading a lot of James L. Nelson recently, and I really like his stuff, and I can see him moving up for me as well. I haven't read enough of his stuff yet to probably put him in my top 10 yet, but I could definitely see him cracking that, because I really like his stuff a lot. Anyway, so I got these 2 Patrick O'Brian books at Half Price Books. They were like $7, $8, which wasn't too bad for them. I really like these covers. There's these art covers from the Norton Publishers. The ones I saw on Amazon have different covers, and that's really unfortunate, because I want to collect this whole series, and I would like to have them all had been the same series of covers. But as long as they're a similar size as these, which these are like trade paperbacks, that'd be fine. Because the covers I see on the ones on Amazon are more like they look more computerized, which I don't really like. These are actually hand drawn. Let me see if I'll get it closer to the screen. Look at that. That cover is great. That is amazing. I don't know who drew that. I'm going to have to find out who drew those, because that is some really good art. It looks like it's pretty obviously the same artist. So I may have to go back there soon, because they had some other ones there too, but I want to grab these. They're just all random ones throughout the series, and some of them might not even been from the Aubrey Maturin series. So anyway, sorry if I said that Maturin wrong. And then I saw this there too, and this is a book I've read before. This is The Death of King Arthur, or Le Mort d'Arthur, which is French, because it was written in early 11. It was like right. There's a couple different dates you'll see if you look at it. Look in the flat. It says, although written by a Norman scholar in 1175, but I think someone reprinted it or copied it at some point and published it, hundreds of years later, and probably changed things, more than likely, but it doesn't matter. But this is by Sir Thomas Malory. This is probably where most of the stuff we know about King Arthur and a lot of the stories and the characters, this is where a lot of that stuff comes from, is from this book right here. Really nice hardcover copy. It was only $3, so I was like, I'll grab this. I've read it. It's been many years since I read it, but there's some great illustrations in here. Hold on. That one's pretty good, but there's one right here in the beginning that's really good. See if I can find it real quick. I'll show it. Someone had used leaves as like bookmarks too, which was kind of interesting. I don't know why whoever did that, but oh yeah, here we go. Oh yeah, see, this is the sword and the stone right here. Look at that. Look at that art there. That's crazy. Look, that's pretty good art. I have an appreciation for art. I don't know if it's got a name below here, but I don't know if that's for sure who wrote it. It says previous page above the sword and the stone. Okay, so no, it's just saying what it is, because the one before this is, the image before this is Tyndale Castle. I'll show this image. Look at that right there. See if you can see that. But yeah, some really great art there. So pretty interesting. But anyway, so I'll probably read this again soon. So I want to read some more Arthurian literature, which I've read this, but it's probably been over 10 years since I read it. And I don't even know. Judging by that, I feel like when I read it, I didn't read this. It wasn't this big, but so I don't know. Maybe I read a smaller version of it then, so maybe it'd be a good idea for me because this is unabridged. Maybe I read an abridged version. I don't remember it being this big, but maybe it's just been a long time. I just don't remember that well. Anyway, so the rest of these books I got here are stuff I picked up from my grandma's house when I was just out there. This is William Johnson, Triumph of the Mountain Man. So William Johnson had two kind of main series, one of which was Smoke Jensen, which is more like your typical Western cowboy kind of character. I was going to see if I had the Mountain Man's name on here. No, I don't see it. At least not rough. Because I can't remember the Mountain Man's name. It's been a long time since I've read any of these. Let's go see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, I'm not seeing it, but sorry about that. I was just going to see if I could find his name real fast. I guess I could have looked real quick before I started, but that's okay. Well, the Smoke Jensen's his other more like cowboy-oriented series. This is his Mountain Man series. So the more the Smoke Jensen stuff is more like late 19th century, like late 1800s, and this is more like colonial era, early 1800s. You know, maybe even 18th like late 18th century stuff. So post American Revolution, but pre, kind of Western, what we think of today as Westerns, right? So this is the Mountain Man series. And I remember one of the very first ones I read of these a long time ago. I remember it wasn't this one, but there's literally a scene of them circling the wagons, right? So anyway, but I used to really love William Johnson when I was a kid. Not really a kid. I was reading them. I was reading them when I was a kid, but even as a young adult. And I remember really loving these books. And I read a whole ton of them, the Smoke Jensen series and this Mountain Man series. He's got some other characters. I'm not going to count the J. So he's got now he still releases books every year, even though he's been dead for almost 20 years. But and there's a co-written by J.A. Johnstone. I don't know if they're related or not, but it doesn't really matter. And I think he's got different characters now in the books. But this Mountain Man and Smoke Jensen used to be his two main ones, and both of which were pretty great. But I'm going to read this sometime soon. I've had this book forever. Still got the price tag on it because you could not find a mass market paperback for $4.50 anymore, unless you buy it at a used bookstore. So it's got an old price tag on it. And some of these next three right here, these are some just old Bernard Cornwell Sharp series novels I got here, right? These are the old covers, right here, which I always really like these realistic images. Yeah, these are actual photos of stuff. It looks like, not like the sketch covers now, which I actually like a lot of these sketch covers too, but I like this style more, this cover. But anyway, I'm going to collect all these. I think I have more of my grandma's. I found it hard to believe that I only had the three there. All these are by Penguin. So I'll have to go looking through my grandma's old stuff, or where she's got all the stuff packed up, and see if I can find some more of these. Because I ought to have some more William Johnson books too. But anyway, well, yeah, these are great, man. If you've never read the Sharp series, like, check it out. Like, every one of these is less than 300 pages, right? So it's not a super intimidating series to get into. There's a lot of them, but yeah, they're not super long. They're really entertaining and fun. He always leaves notes in the beginning and the end about the historical events. Sometimes there'll be maps. And of course, as a person who loves history, I love maps. So somewhat I own many maps, maps of just all kinds of stuff. So, maps of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. I got maps of Viking Age England. I just love maps. But anyway, but yeah. So this is Sharp's Gold. Hold on a second. Sharp's Regiment. Almost all the titles start with Sharp, right? And then you got Sharp's Company here. I'll go ahead and read. I'll read one of the descriptions of it on the back on one of these, because these are great. Oh yeah, see, look. Oh, here's a map. See, and you'll see that he'll do that a lot in these books. You'll get maps of like fortresses and usually it's around. They're almost always tied to some event, some historical event, right? And of course, Richard Sharp, being the man he is involved in all these historical events. Man, just a really lucky guy, huh? Lived through all that stuff and lived for 20 years. He's in anyway. Yeah, he's in India too, but not just the Napoleonic Wars. But anyway, this so Portugal and Spain. Okay, I don't think he's got one where they during the first English landing on Spain and or in Portugal, and the evacuation, right? And Richard Sharp is in that. That's not this one. I'm almost certain it's not. Yeah, that's a really good one. I got to figure out the title of that one. But so this is says looming on the border of Portugal and Spain is the fortress of Badajoz, to lead an assault on its thick, sheer walls and battlements of suicide. Yet Richard Sharp must lead one. Inside the walls are his wife and daughter, and only he can save them. Outside is the misshapen, vengeance-crazed Sergeant Obadiah Hakeswill, a man determined to kill Sharp. Sharp knows that in the heat of battle, only the cold steel of his battered sword and the ruthless lust of a soldier of war will protect him from the danger of both sides. Yeah, tell me that doesn't sound like a good time, right? Most people will recognize those characters. If you know Sharp, you'll recognize those character names. But anyway, these are great, man. I'm telling you, check it out. You will not regret. If there's one thing I could talk anybody into reading, it would be this Sharp series, man. They're great. But anyway, those are going up on the shelf. So probably on my other bookshelf, not up here. This bookshelf up here is a little more for, not just for show, but kind of where I put a lot of my most favorite stuff at. These are a couple good ones. This is the stuff I got from. I've already owned this stuff. This is Give War and Peace a Chance. I love War and Peace is my favorite book ever, so I will read books about War and Peace. But anyway, this was really good. It's a little bit of a Leo Tolstoy. I don't want to call it a biography, but it's about Leo Tolstoy. A lot of stuff that he's written, not just War and Peace. Just I think he often use he'll say he'll make use the adjective of his name, which is kind of hard to pronounce, but like Tolstoyan. You know what I mean? He'll try and he'll like kind of Tolstoy wisdom and stuff that he said, a lot of quoting of Tolstoy and philosophy of Tolstoy, and it's just a really great book, which reminds me, I need to read Anna Karenina by Tolstoy. I've read Death of Ivan Ilyich, and of course I've read War and Peace several times, but I never read Anna Karenina. It's a bigger book, but not as long as War and Peace, and honestly, I need to read it, so my reading list is already, it's long. I got a lot of stuff I want to read. I'm going to do all this Wilbur Smith and Bernard Cornwell reading and this Patrick O'Brien, but I also want to read more James L. Nelson, and I'm still reading The Half-Drowned King, and I'm probably going to end up reading that whole series. But anyway, I'll talk a little bit at the end of the video about what I got coming up. But anyway, and then this is a nonfiction book. This is To the Edge of the World by Christian Wolmar. I've read a few books by this guy. He writes stuff about trains, really, and I'm not super into trains, right? But I like geography and history. Like I've said, I like maps a lot. And there might even be some maps. Yeah, of course, there's maps in this. So I'll go and show this map right here. This book is about the Siberian Railway, right? So at one point, of course, if you know anything about Siberia is in Russia, and this is about the train they built that goes from eastern Russia all the way to western Russia, the Vladivostok, from not really even further east of Moscow, probably really from like St. Petersburg to Vladivostok, and of course if you know anything about geography, Russia is massive, and they built these. It's actually a couple rail lines, but they built it from both sides of the coast of Russia, right? And they met essentially in the middle, and you can just imagine the engineering marvel that is just to get these people. And this was 200 years ago or more now, probably over 200 years ago, and to get these to meet up, right? And but this is just about what it took to build that. And they're building over mountains and then frozen tundra, like it's crazy, right? And like I said, I'm not a big train guy, but this was really interesting. And you can just imagine the hell it would be to work on this, work on railroad, right? And he's right. There's another book he wrote called Engines of War, and it's about like how railroad was used in World War II. I think it covers some World War I stuff too, but that's a really good one. There's another one. He does some about the American railways, obviously, because America's really well because they built long rails too. But anyway, Uh, might have another one about the rail in Alaska. I know he's got one about the London Underground. But yeah, I read the Engines of War, and I read another one about the American rails. But I've read a couple of this guy's books right here, and they're very good. If you like, you might think like, oh, trains, and that's kind of what I thought. But I was so interested in the just the Russian geography and history on this. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna check this out and read it. So this was really good. I highly recommend this. I might read it again sometime. That's why I grabbed it. Once I get through all the other stuff I want to read, and that's all the stuff I just got recently. There's been a few other books I picked up I could have added here, but I had so much stuff there, I figured that'd be good for now. But yeah, so I mentioned a bunch of stuff I got coming up. I'm reading, right now I'm about to finish up Tortuga by James L. Nelson. And then after that, I got a couple of Sharpe novels I'm going to read, which is Sharpe's Command is the most recent one, I think. Bernard Cornwell released, and then his newest one, which I think is Sharpe's Assassin, it's about to come out in a few days. I'm going to read both of those, and then I'm probably going to read Cry Wolf by Wilbur Smith. And then after that, I want to read Musashi soon. Some of the Musashi books I just discovered today are actually on Kindle Unlimited. They got it all broken up into like 7 volumes. So I'm going to read. I want to read that soon, and then of course I want to read the Patrick O'Brian series. I'm going to reread that because those Patrick O'Brian, Bernard Cornwell, and Wilbur Smith, I really want to feature on the channel quite frequently, and talk, because I don't want them to be forgotten. So, and I think they just deserve to be remembered. So I'm going to read a bunch of their stuff coming up and reread a lot of their stuff. But I also want to read more James L. Nelson. I really like Dan Jones a lot too, so I actually kind of stopped reading Half Drowned King to start reading. I wanted to try out War of the Roses by Dan Jones, which is a nonfiction book, and I really like it so far. Dan Jones writes a lot of stuff that takes place during the 100 Years' War and the age of the Templar Knights and the Crusades. And I'm going to read more of his stuff. I read his book, The Plantagenets, and I'm going to check out. I just want to read some more of his stuff. And then I got Essex Dogs. I already bought it on my Kindle. I'm going to read that soon too. So that's probably going to be within the next 3 or 4 books I read. I'm going to finish Half Drowned King. I just wanted to try that War of the Roses out, and I really like it. I think I read the first 3 chapters. Tortuga I'll probably have done today or tomorrow, and then probably right after that I'll start one of those Sharpe books. Because I want an opportunity to talk more about Bernard Cornwell. So, and then with this new one coming out, so I'm gonna read that and talk about it too. So, anyway, I'll talk more about what's coming up. But like I said, I plan to do regular features of Patrick O'Brian, Wilbur Smith, and Bernard Cornwell. I like James L. Nelson so much. I'll probably talk some more about him too. He's got a series. I haven't read Brother on the Coast, but I want to read that too. But he's got one of a Viking Age set in Ireland I'm going to read. It's like 10 books long. I might not read it all right away, but I really like his stuff so far. So anyway, so I got quite a bit of stuff to read. And then I found another book on Kindle Unlimited. It's by Aaron Fletcher called Outback. And it's kind of in that James Michener style where it's like generational and it's all set in Australia. And I thought that looked really good. I was like, dang, man, I got so much stuff I want to read, because I also want to read that Rutherford book, Ruska. I like stuff that I find Russia interesting, so I might read that soon too. So I'm tied up with reading stuff for a while, man. Between the stuff I want to do for the channel, and the reading projects for the channel, I still want to read more of this Titan Press stuff. So I got plenty of stuff to read. I'll be occupied for a while. So anyway, so I'll talk more about that soon too. But anyway. So that'll be all for today, YouTube. So have a good day or good night, wherever you are.